Welcome, everyone, to the keynote for this 2025 annual national meeting for the Green Party. Give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me okay. All right, great. Good to see you. Thank you all so much for all you're doing. Thank you to the organizers for putting together this very timely conference, and a big thank you to Miko Peled for being here as our keynote speaker. Miko is such a timely person to be here in this moment, keynoting this conference. Miko almost needs no introduction. I think for most people who know of him, virtually a legend in his own time. Miko is a dedicated and courageous trailblazer, an activist, an author, an educator, telling the world about what Zionism really is, and a martial artist fighting an epic battle with truly historic forces. This mix of imperialism and racism and evangelical anti-Semitism that merged to create Zionism and the apartheid state of Israel. Miko has long been ahead of the curve in leading the fight for Palestinian human rights and sovereignty, and really for the rights of all oppressed people. He began, however, in a family at the highest level of the Israeli military and Zionist elites. His grandfather signed Israel's Declaration of Independence, and his father fought in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and served as a general in the Six-Day War of 1967. After winning that war, however, his father broke with prevailing Zionist opinion and became a staunch advocate for dialogue with the PLO and for Palestinian rights. Miko himself had begun in his father's military footsteps, but he soon did a 180, and his intense commitment to activism and anti-Zionism grew out of his family's trauma stemming from the occupation. Specifically, Miko's 13-year-old niece, Smadar, was tragically killed in a Palestinian suicide bombing in 1997. And Smadar's mother, Miko's sister, understood this as a response to the murderous Israeli occupation. So Miko joined his sister in dedicating himself to ending the root cause of the violence that took his niece's life, that is the occupation and the apartheid Zionist state. Miko's two books, I'll mention just briefly to say that they tackle two of the most critical issues of our day, the effects of racism and empire abroad and at home. The General's Son describes how he, and I quote here, I'm quoting Miko, as the son of an Israeli general and a staunch Zionist, how he came to realize that the story upon which I was raised was a lie. And his second book, Injustice, the Story of the Holy Land Foundation 5, catalogs the impact of racism and Islamophobia and militarism here at home in the assault essentially on our civil liberties and actually on our democracy itself. Specifically, in the criminalization of the Holy Land Foundation for relief and development, leading to the arrest and jailing of 5 leaders. Chris Hedges described that as one of the most egregious cases of injustice committed to date against Muslim leaders in the US. So as Israel breaks all the modern day records for cruelty and criminality, as the official death toll now tops 60,000, though estimates reach as high as almost 500,000, as Americans now oppose the war in Gaza in unprecedented numbers by nearly a 2-to-1 margin, and even yet as Congress continues to overwhelmingly defeat resolutions to do something about that, to block weapons shipments to Israel, most recently in the Senate, a $700 million, roughly, weapons shipment was resoundingly passed. As 2 million lives hang in the balance of a murderous criminal starvation blockade declared by Israel in October of 2023 and ramped up some 3 months ago, we are extremely privileged to have one of the most powerful nonviolent fighters for justice in our era, who's been playing a key role in the history unfolding before our eyes, which is critical to our mission here in the Green Party. So with no further ado, it's a great honor to have you here, Miko. Take it away. I look forward to hearing your latest thoughts. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Jill. That was a beautiful intro. I'm humbled by your intro. Thank you. And thank you to the Green Party for inviting me to give this talk today. I've been a fan of you, Jill, and of course the Green Party for years now. And I don't think there's been a more important time to be part of the Green Party with its progressive values and progressive platform. Even as everything you described, Jill, all the evangelism, the racism, the empire, the horrific reality in Gaza, the complete lack of disregard for human life and human rights, not only in Palestine, but around the world. There's never been a more important time, I think, to hold on to these progressive values, to hold on to the progressive platform, to remember our sisters and brothers in the global South that are still not really even recovering, but are still suffering from colonialism and or neocolonialism and the empire and capitalism. And of course, from my perspective, of course, Palestine is the center of my work and the center of my life. So thank you again, and thank you all for participating. I think as we view the horrors that are unfolding and the support, some active support to the point of complicity here in the United States, and then support which maybe is less or less complicity, but still very little action taking place by other countries, by the international community around the world. It's very easy to lose hope. It's very easy to say there's nothing we can do. It's very easy to fall into just a sense of depression and helplessness. And it's perfectly normal and natural to feel these things. I think we all do. At the same time, there's never been a time, like I said already several times, there's never been a more important time to hold on to our values and to hold on to the progressive platform and to fight for it and stand up for it and do everything we can to enlarge our circle of friends and comrades fighting for justice, fighting against racism, fighting against empire, and standing up for what's right. Nobody knows how things are going to turn out. Like I said, we live in a time right now where all the worst expectations, all the worst prophecies, if you will, have been exceeded. I mean, it's beyond belief. There's a death camp in full swing in the Gaza, what's called the Gaza Strip. It was really a concentration camp turned into a death camp. And there's a genocide in full swing taking place. And the best we get almost 2 years into it is declarations, promises, threats, but very, very little action. Very, very little action. And the action that we do see is helping no one so far. And it's very, very troubling to live in a world where something like this can take place. Like everybody says, it happens in broad daylight. It's happening live on our phones, on our computers. We can see it, we can hear it, and the world doesn't seem to be, at least the powers the powers that govern the world don't seem to be interested in doing anything. And that is really a terrible place to be. But it's up to us. I think this reality points to the fact that people of conscience around the world have an incredibly important role to play these days. We have to be involved. We have to stand up. We have to argue with our neighbors and our in-laws and whoever it is that still believes in Zionism, whoever it is that still believes in Trump, whoever it is that still thinks that maybe the way things are right now is somehow okay, that maybe this is a biblical prophecy, whatever the case may be. It's never been more important to argue and to stand up and to say, no, this is not okay. We have to bring about the change that needs to be brought about. And it's not comfortable to do, and it's not easy to do, and really nobody wants to do it. It's easy to say, to talk about it. It's easy to tell people to do it, but then when we're faced with sometimes people we love, sometimes people who have been our friends for many, many years, and we have to say these things, it's not easy. But that's what would be the point of being part of a Green Party? What would be the point of holding on to progressive values if we didn't stand up on the rooftop and shout at the top of our voices? What is the point of being part of a group like this, of a party like this, of a platform like this? What would be the point of holding on to these important values of humanity if we didn't do that? Keeping it inside is not going to make a difference. Keeping it inside is not going to change anything. And so it's really up to us. It's really, really up to us. We really have to stand up. We have to do more. We have to get up every morning with the strongest determination to dig in as deep as we can, to find the determination, to find the strength, to find the resilience to continue to fight this fight, because it is up to us. And living here in the United States in particular, if we don't stand up, then we are complicit, because this country is complicit. It's our money that's going to kill people. It's our representatives that vote to send the money and the weapons. And again, I'm focusing on Palestine, but I think this is true in so many different places. There are still horrific things taking place in Africa and in other places. And Latin America is still trying to recover from the centuries of colonialism and centuries of slavery and centuries of the horrors that have taken place and continue to take place. And we're at a place in this country where we actually have the ability to change. We have the ability. We do vote for the representatives. And as long as our representatives think that it's okay, that we're going to let them get away with it, they will. And as long as the media that we consume feels that it's okay to present things in this, the reality in this false reality, I should say, then they will continue. So our struggle right now is multifaceted. Like I said, it's extremely important, and there's nobody else. I mean, this is it. People always seem to expect that there'll be a president or a governor or a leader or somebody that will come and save us. And we are that person. Each and every one of us is that person. Each and every one of us can do what needs to be done in order to bring about the change. And of course, we have strength in numbers. We've seen unprecedented numbers of people around the world standing up for Palestine since October 7th. We have seen the conversation on Palestine elevated thanks to the students in the encampments last year. The courage, the honesty, the humanity that was displayed in the encampments is really unprecedented as far as I can see. I've been fortunate enough to visit several of the encampments, and I also saw the movie, which I strongly recommend. And we have seen in these encampments a kind of leadership, a kind of honesty and integrity that is rare. I mean, it is really rare, and I don't know that and it seems to be unprecedented. And they're paying the price. The students are paying the price. The leaders are paying the price. We all know what happened to Mahmoud Khalil and so many others. And to me, that was one of the most inspiring things I'd ever seen, I'd ever experienced. The humanity, the sense of camaraderie in the encampments, the sense of solidarity, and how everybody was there for everybody else and for the greater cause. We don't often see such incredible examples of humanity. We really don't. And what we saw in these encampments, I think, will be remembered as one of the most heroic acts we've seen and most heroic stands for justice we've seen in a very, very long time. So I think we need to take a look at how we discuss Palestine and what are we demanding when we talk about Palestine. And I think it's time for us to shape the conversation as opposed to what is largely happening right now, where we just participate in the conversation on terms that were defined by others and largely defined, of course, by the Zionists, by the other side. And once we do that, then we'll be able to really change the conversation. So I'll plug in something that I've been doing. Some of you know, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, we established Palestine House of Freedom in Washington, D.C. We have a large space and with really incredible amounts of activity on Capitol Hill, on Pennsylvania Avenue, with a Palestinian flag. And the objective, as a nonprofit, our mission is education. The objective is to educate to a point that people understand that the conversation that we're having right now makes no sense. We have to change the conversation. We have to change the way we talk about Palestine so it starts making sense. But largely the conversation, like I said, is following a narrative and following a path that was charted by other people. So the most extreme example is, of course, when they want to claim that saying a free Palestine is anti-Semitic, or that the encampments were anti-Semitic, or that calling for a free Palestine from the river to the sea is somehow anti-Semitic, and on and on and on. All this nonsense that they brew. So I think I don't have to tell anybody in this group probably that this is all nonsense, but it goes deeper than that. There are deeper issues in the conversation, in the discourse about Palestine, that I really strongly feel need to be changed, need to be deeply revised, seriously revised. When we look at the events that took place on October the 7th and since, I think it's important to realize that the Gaza Strip, as an example, is a concentration camp. It was created as a concentration camp, and what we're seeing now is it was transformed into a death camp. And I know when I say concentration camp and death camp, the first things that come to people's mind is World War II, is the Nazi concentration camps, and that's, I think, a good thing. Had the world not intervened, then the Holocaust would not have ended when it ended. The camps might even still be there. People would still be living in concentration camp or dying in concentration camps. And so that's why it's so important for the world to intervene. But I think we need to adopt this language, a concentration camp that has been transformed into a death camp. Now, what had to be done during World War II with the concentration camps is they had to be liberated. They had to be liberated. The problem was not only that there was severe need for humanitarian aid, as we know exists in Gaza for decades now, but the need was to dismantle the camps, liberate the people, and rid the country, or rid the world, I should say, of the regime that put them in place. And this is exactly what we need to do. And this is exactly, I believe, how we need to discuss Palestine. Palestine is a rich country. It's full of resources. So why is it that people need to send aid in planes and trucks to enter the Gaza concentration camp and wait for permission from the party that is exercising and committing the genocide in order to allow the aid in? The starvation is not happening by accident. The starvation is part of the genocide. It's easier and cheaper to let people die of starvation, die of dehydration, die of simple infections than to shoot them. It's that horrible. It's that horrific. But that's the reality. That is the reality. A regime that is conducting a genocide has no motivation to allow humanitarian aid to the people they want to kill. And yet this is the conversation. We need to allow humanitarian aid. We need to pressure for more humanitarian aid. If the Gaza concentration camp didn't exist and Palestinians had freedom of movement, there wouldn't be a problem because the resources are there. A 5-minute drive out of the Gaza concentration camp in almost any direction, people can find all the food, all the water, all the medicine, everything they need. Everything is there. 5 minutes out of the concentration camp, people live a completely normal life. Nobody dreams of a child going hungry or dehydrated or somebody dying from an infection. That doesn't exist. So the conversation we need to be having is not just to bring humanitarian aid. Of course, people there need humanitarian aid and need a great deal of it, but it's not going to come in by trucks through Egypt with the permission of the genocidal regime. The humanitarian aid needs to come, but the liberation has to come first, or at least at the same time. The camp needs to be liberated. And I did an interview with, excuse me, Russia TV the other day. And I said, just like the Red Army liberated the camps during World War II, the camp needs to be liberated. But not only the Gaza concentration camp / death camp needs to be liberated. Palestinians live in ghettos throughout all of Palestine. There is no freedom of movement. There is no free access to the resources. And as I'm sure many of you know, the apartheid state has created a bureaucracy and sets of laws that are so complicated that Palestinians living in different parts of Palestine are living under different sets of laws with different authorities and different methods of oppression and so on. But the reality is that the oppression exists. The lack of freedom of movement in their own country exists. The lack of protection for Palestinian people is a huge problem. And it's been a huge problem for many, many decades. There is no guarantee to the safety and security of the Palestinian people. And as we see all the time, not only in the Gaza death camp, but we see it throughout Palestine. A settler kills a Palestinian and goes free. And then often the family of the victim gets arrested. And that just happened recently. It happens all the time. Palestinians are thrown out of their homes. Settlers come in. There's no recourse. There's nobody there. There's nobody for them to go to. There's nobody that protects them. There is no safety and security for the Palestinian people. And if we think about this for a minute, for decades, the conversation has always been, particularly in this country, we have to guarantee the safety and security of the Israelis. From what? Safety and security from what? There's never been a threat to them. They've never been persecuted. There's this myth that somehow Israelis have always been persecuted and they need protection. Protection from what? So we need to, again, see this in a light where we have to stand up and demand protection for the Palestinian people, demand safety and security for the Palestinian people. And if we do that, and we demand freedom of movement, now we have solved a great deal of the problems. The lack of resources, the checkpoints, the walls, the concentration camps, the ghettos, and on and on and on. And it goes from something that, I think to most people would seem obvious. You know, Israelis in all the settlements across Palestine, from the north in the Galilee to the south in the Naqab, all across the country, have bomb shelters. You cannot build a house without having a bomb shelter or secure room. You can't build a building without having a bomb shelter. You have to have bomb shelters, you know, for people to access. They don't exist in the Palestinian towns. They don't exist in the Palestinian towns. So when Israel attacked Iran recently and Iran retaliated, Israeli settlers had bomb shelters to go to. Palestinians did not. Palestinians, who really are, first of all, the majority of the population, but also they have nothing to do with this war with Iran. Yet the rockets and the missiles fall where they fall, and Palestinians were killed, and there's nowhere for them to go. This elderly lady that I know, you know, she would, 80-year-old lady, every time the sirens went off, she would have to run and stand under the staircase. I mean, it's ridiculous. People with young children, nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. And this is true in Jerusalem. This is true, like I said, throughout all of Palestine. There is no protection. There is no safety or security for the Palestinian people at any level, be it the ability to kill a Palestinian and go free, which of course happens all the time, or be it when there's a war. There's nowhere for them to go. There's nowhere for them to hide. There's nowhere for them to find shelter. Now, one of the, I don't know if to call it interesting, or we should call it insane, or we should call it, I don't know what, but this idea that this country in particular, but the West in general, has been insisting on supporting the idea of the state of Israel from the very beginning is really ridiculous. It's absurd. Like I said, it's madness. There's always talk about the need for safety, security, stability, democracy, peace. And yet, who has been the party that has destabilized, brought about violence, brought about completely, it made peace a word that people don't even want to say anymore? Who has been the purveyor of terrorism for the last at least 8 decades in the region? It's been the state of Israel. It's been the Zionists. I mean, the Zionist terrorism preceded the existence of the state by several decades. We know that Zionist terrorist groups put bombs in hotels and in marketplaces and coffee shops and on and on and on and on, killing civilians, all from, as a policy, as a reality. But then when the state was established, this became state terrorism. So if people really want stability, if people really want to see security and safety for people, and I don't mean security in the sense of armies and missiles, I mean the basic security and safety for people. If people are serious about this idea of peace, why are we investing in the obstacle to these things? All of the investment for decades, whether it's in money, whether it's in diplomatic cover, whether it's just in the discourse, whether it's in education, always goes to support the obstacle to peace, the obstacle to stability, the obstacle to the end of the violence. The state of Israel, from the moment it was established, did not stop engaging in war and violence in the region, be it against the Palestinian people and be it against the countries that neighbor Palestine. Constantly. And as a strategy. And the strategy was, we will be the scariest, most brutal bully gangster in this region. That's it. And that's what they've done. So why is it, how does it make sense on any level to continue to support and to continue to enhance the obstacle? Now, our job as people of conscience, as people who hold on to progressive values, as people who believe in humanity and in the rights of people, we need to stand up and say, there is a vision, there is the possibility, there exists the hope for peace, for stability, for a real democracy in Palestine. But we have to get rid of the obstacle. We cannot keep supporting the obstacle to these things. And whether it be this genocidal reality in the Gaza camp, or attacks against Iran, or attacks in Lebanon and Syria, and on and on and on. That is the obstacle. Why are we allowing it to continue? So we need to say there is a hope if we remove the obstacle. The attack on Iran was horrible. It was insane. The genocide of the Palestinian people, there's no words to describe. It's a genocide. I mean, what can you say? And it's a cruel type of genocide. The attacks against Lebanon and Syria and on, these are horrific. But who's creating it? Somehow there's always this argument that justifies it. Yeah, what would you do if they're shooting missiles at you? What are you going to do because of Hamas? What are you going to do? None of this would have happened had it not been for the creation of the apartheid state in Palestine. The apartheid state in Palestine is the root cause of the violence, of the suffering. That is the root cause. Not to mention the fact that the apartheid state is a massive war machine with military capabilities that are fighting mostly kids, civilians. That's who they've been killing for decades, civilians. There's never been a Palestinian army. So even the term, the Gaza war, even that term, which so many people use all the time, there is no Gaza war. There's a genocide going on, and there are groups of courageous Palestinians who are trying to fight for their liberation, or trying to end it, or at least trying to slow it down somehow. That is the context. And without the context, of course, it's impossible for us to push forward with this conversation, to push forward, to convince people, to demonstrate to people. Again, going back to Palestine House of Freedom, one of the things that we're doing now is we're putting together a course, curriculum, where it's a campaign that we're calling Tarakum, and Tarakum means accumulation. So accumulation, using or tapping into the accumulation of the Palestinian experience. And the Palestinian experience, the Palestinian struggle for justice and for liberation goes back many, many decades. And there is an enormous amount of incredible material that was written, that was taught. There's an enormous amount, whether it's through writing, whether it's through art, whether it's through politics, political education, and on and on and on. It's like this massive treasure chest, and nobody touches it, and most people don't even know it exists. So what we're trying to do now is open that treasure chest, if you will, and pick out the gems and create a curriculum that people will be able to see. Because the understanding of the Palestinian experience, the understanding of the Palestinian struggle through all these different mediums is incredibly important. That is why I, for one, because I've been, fortunate enough to see these things, to be involved in the Palestinian struggle, and to learn this, over the several decades, I am so optimistic at the end of the day. That's why I can continue to do this work, because I know that there's this treasure chest, which is the Palestinian experience, and we can revive it. And if we revive it, then we can show people why they need to get rid of the obstacle and what the obstacle created. Without understanding, and this is not to blame anyone, but without the understanding of the Palestinian experience, there is really no way to envision a free Palestine. That's my opinion. And so we decided, like I said, at Palestine House of Freedom, we decided to create this curriculum that will give this to people. And you'll be able to sign up for it and so on, and begin to see this incredible experience, and then see why there's hope. Now, the Zionists have done a tremendous job over the last 120 years in their work to influence all the different facets of American society. So in education, they have an incredible influence. The American education system is a Zionist education. Americans receive a Zionist education. And you know this because, number one, people know about Israel. They know that somehow it's connected to the Bible, or they think that's what they were taught. They know about the Holocaust. People know these things. When you say Israel, it's not foreign to people. Try saying Palestine and see what happens. People asking me where I'm from, I say I'm from Palestine. And rarely does anybody know what I'm talking about. Unless I'm among people who know what Palestine is, who are involved in this, rarely do people know what I'm talking about. And very often they'll say Pakistan. And so this is the success of the Zionist education in America. And of course, we know that they have influence in popular culture, in politics, in the media, in press, and on and on and on and on. They've done a tremendous job over the last 100 years or so in influencing all of these, all of these facets of American society. So what are we going to do about it? So number one, we need to arm ourselves with knowledge. We need to know more, and then we need to express this, and we need to provide this education. We need to provide this knowledge to everybody else, so that they understand that the state of Israel is not an act of heroism, like I used to think. That it's not a response to the Holocaust, that it's not a response to anti-Semitism. In fact, the state of Israel is the expression of racism and violence. That's what it is. The apartheid state is real. It was established as an apartheid state from the get-go. The lives of Palestinians have always been seen as cheap. Arabs die, who cares? And if Arabs kill Arabs, it's even better. And this is fundamental, this is foundational to Zionist thinking. And the apartheid state absolutely is an expression of the Zionist ideology. But people don't realize that. They see Jewish people who are Zionists in this country, and they're philanthropists, and they're liberal, and they're friendly, and they're very nice, and they've done so much for America, and Jews marched with MLK, and on and on and on and on and on. And it's our job to say, yes, but the Jewish people that marched with MLK were not the people who were supporting the genocide and the apartheid state. This is really crucial. And yes, Jewish culture in America and Jewish, contributions to America and so forth have been tremendous, but that's not the point. This has nothing to do with it. Supporting Israel is not a demonstration of support and love for Jewish people. It is not the way we stand up against anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is not racism of a higher order. It's not. It's racism. And it's no better, no more important than racism against anybody else. And God knows this country was founded on racism and genocide. And the racism has not gone away. Even though legally it's no longer perhaps an apartheid state, realistically, this country is still very much an apartheid country. But we have to demonstrate this. And so, again, going back to what I said earlier about changing the way we talk, it's important to understand the response to the Holocaust is not creating this militaristic, racist apartheid regime that calls itself a Jewish state. It's not. The response to the Holocaust, just like the response to any other form of genocide or racism, is education, is being human, reminding people how to be human, reminding people that there are values out there that they should embrace, that we should reject racism, we should reject violence. And it's very easy to say, who was it that said there was an event here in DC with Ro Khanna, and he was asked about Ukraine. And he said, well, I'm not a pacifist. I believe in defensive wars. I thought, okay. So I asked him, so do you support the Palestinian right to resist? And would you condemn the genocide of the Palestinian people? And he nearly fell off his chair. He goes, oh, no, Hamas, two-state solution. I said, how can you talk about two-state solution when there's a genocide? Would you have talked about a two-state solution with the Nazis? Was there any other way that the Nazis should have been treated other than to remove them completely? No, there was no other way. And there is no other way to end the savagery, the brutality, the cruelty that is inflicted upon the Palestinian people other than removing the source, which is the apartheid state. The state of Israel, I'll say it again, is an apartheid genocidal regime. It's not even, people talk about what is the name of the country? Is it Israel? Is it Palestine? No, the name of the country is Palestine. Israel is a regime. Israel is a regime, a vicious, racist regime that has taken over Palestine, changed the name of this country, and for some reason, the rest of the world said, fine. Up to May of 1948, everybody referred to that country as Palestine. Look at maps, look at documents, look at UN resolutions, what have you. From May of 1948, everybody forgot, and it's called Palestine. But they didn't only change the name of the country. They changed the name of cities and towns and villages and streets. And they do it all the time. They do it now too. They do it in Arab East Jerusalem. They do it in Hebron. They do it across the country everywhere. And the discrimination against Palestinians is across the country. the racism that Palestinians have to endure, the terrorism that Palestinians have to endure on a daily basis for almost 100 years is the reality. That's what they did. That's what Zionism did. And therefore, we have to reject Zionism. And therefore, we have to do everything we can to dismantle the apartheid state. And then it can be transformed. Then we can see the emergence of a real democratic, free Palestine from the river to the sea, from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea, from the borders in the north with Syria and Lebanon to the very south, the Gulf of Aqaba and the border with Egypt. That is what we need to be talking about. People talk about ceasefire. Same thing. Ceasefire when there's a genocide? What do you mean ceasefire when there's a genocide? What do you mean war when there's a genocide? It's genocide. Now, I believe it's been a genocide from the very beginning, from when the apartheid state was established. What we're seeing now is the heightened state of the genocide. They sped it up. And they're doing it mostly in the Gaza concentration camp because it is a concentration camp. There's this ridiculous argument that in 2005, Israel pulled out the settlers, some 7,000 settlers from what's known as the Gaza Strip, and then gave the Palestinians a chance to prove themselves that they have, and create a democratic state and so on. Of course, it's nonsense. Yeah. They pulled out the settlers so they could continue to commit the genocide. That's why they pulled out the settlers. So again, once we connect the dots, it's clear. From the moment the apartheid state was established to this day, Palestinians have been subjected to apartheid and genocide and ethnic cleansing, 3 crimes that are defined, very well defined, were defined mostly after World War II, and are designated as crimes against humanity. They're so severe. So 3 years after the end of the genocide of Jews and others in Europe, we saw the emergence of the creation of the apartheid state in Palestine. And again, we're looking at this and it's beyond belief. So like I said in the beginning, almost 2 years into this, almost 2 years into this brutality, this savagery, countries around the world are beginning to speak, governments. We have the Hague Coalition, countries from the global south that have come up with some declarations, and the president of Colombia announced that they will no longer send coal to the apartheid state. They're their number one supplier of coal. There are other resolutions and other decisions that were made, other declarations, but really, if we want to come down to it, the only country that has made a dent from the very beginning and got involved right away is Yemen. The Yemeni forces, by blocking the Bab el-Mandab Straits, have impacted the apartheid state like nobody else. They took a stance. They're paying an incredibly heavy price. They're being bombed and killed, and they're standing up. And they said, no, there's a genocide going on. We will not stand down. We're going to stand, and we're not going to allow this to go on. And they've had an impact. They've had a very serious impact. The port of Eilat in southern Palestine is shut down completely. Nothing is coming through. And we know that there's been it's impacted trade around the world as well. But if you say that, now you're supporting terrorism. If you say that what the Palestinians did on October the 7th was anything but terrorism, now you're supporting terrorism. There's no terrorism there. The only terrorism is what Palestinians have been subjected to, not what Palestinians are doing in response to the genocide, well, not what they're doing in response to the conditions under which the world has placed them. So, like I said in the beginning, and I'll end with this as well, it's up to us. There's no one else. People of conscience in this country, in other countries, have to demand more, have to push more. Nothing short of the absolute liberation of the Palestinian people, the absolute dismantling of the apartheid state, the dismantling of the Gaza death camp, enormous amounts of aid for the people in the Gaza death camp. 2 million people. And God only knows, nobody knows how many were killed. I mean, it's in the hundreds of thousands. There's no question about that, because most of the dead are not counted. Every child that dies of dehydration or an infection, we don't, they are not usually not counted. And we don't even know, because there's no facilities, there's no way to count, there's no way to measure, there's nothing there in the Gaza camp that will allow people to do this, to measure, to count. Nothing short of the release of every Palestinian prisoner from these horrendous, torturous dungeons in which they exist. Thousands of them, thousands upon thousands of Palestinians languishing in horror, absolute dungeons of horror. And we see their images when they're released from time to time. Shells of their former selves, shells. Friends of mine come out and I see pictures and I don't recognize them, because the torture is so horrible. The poet Mus'ab Abu Taha was describing how he was arrested for a short time, thankfully, only several days. And in this one prison camp that they created in the south, the prisoners sit on their knees all day, shackled, handcuffed, blindfolded, on their knees all day. If they have to go to the bathroom, they're allowed to stand. Somebody takes them. They're still shackled and handcuffed and blindfolded. When they're given something to eat, which is very little, very, very bare minimum, again, they have to do it in that position. We're talking about a tortured culture that is really unbelievable. A cruelty that is really incredible. One of the worst things that you could possibly imagine. The worst things you could possibly imagine. And the thing is, it's going on and on and on and on and on and on. There's no end in sight. The only end in sight is us. The only end in sight is strengthening the Green Party, strengthening and growing our base, growing our movement, if you will. And again, the causes that we all stand for, the causes that we all fight for, are all intertwined. They're all connected. They're all connected. The fight to free Palestine, the fight for African American, for Black liberation in this country, the fight to as Angela Davis calls it, decarcerate, to abolish prisons, to defund police, to disarm police, to liberate African countries from post-colonialism, what is going on in the Congo and in so many other places. The threat to African countries when they try to liberate themselves, like Burkina Faso and a few other places, they're always threatening to kill the leaders. And they do very often. And on and on and on. The need to see everybody else as an enemy. All these things are intertwined. There is no difference. The struggle now against ICE. All of these things come and stem from the same source, and they feed each other. The powers that conduct all of these, that but push and see these and see these horrors as a policy, are all intertwined. So all of our struggles are intertwined. That's why I always say we all need to work together, stand together, fight together. We have, again, at Palestine House of Freedom, we have a very large space. And so different groups, different organizations are always coming and holding events there and discussions and so on. We're busy all the time. And that's how it should be. We should all be working together. So we're very proud that it's a Palestine-related space that allows for all this activity. And again, we're on Capitol Hill on Pennsylvania Avenue. And so I go back to us. We are it. We are the deliverers of liberation. We're the deliverers we're the ones who are holding the torch of the values, these progressive values of liberation and socialism and on and on and on. And as hard as it is, especially now when we're all following the horrors of Gaza, as hard as it is, we have to dig in more and more and more. We have to find inspiration in each other, because we are all inspired by each other. We can all inspire each other because every single person here has something unique to offer and another point that is inspiring to everybody else. I'm inspired, every time I meet or see or talk to my Palestinian friends, whether they are able to come visit, whether we do an interview and so on. That's inspiration. And so we need to inspire one another more. We need to work with each other more. We really need to. Because if we demonstrate clearly and come from a place of understanding and knowledge that in Palestine, the apartheid state is an obstacle. And it's not easy to show. It's not easy to describe. It's not easy to demonstrate this. We just have to have the ability to do it and the knowledge of how to do it. And the desire to stand there in front of people who sometimes, like I said, people that are close to us and disagree with us, and to demonstrate this and create the friction that sometimes is inevitable. But we have to do it. We absolutely have to do it. There is no one else. So I'll end again just by saying I appreciate everybody taking the time to participate in this and listen to this. Thank you, Jill, for your wonderful introduction. Thank you for including me in the Green Party and in this event. And I want to invite everyone to be engaged in all the different causes we believe in, but please see Palestine and stand behind the banner of a liberated Palestine, of a post-apartheid Palestine, post-genocide Palestine. We have to see it, we have to feel it, we have to want it with everything we've got. And then I absolutely know that we can do it. So once again, thank you all very, very much. Absolutely. Free Palestine. I love it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Miko. That was the inspiration we've come to expect from you and with you. And I think we are with you more than ever. And we really look forward to continuing this work together. Great comments in the chat and just wonderful.
Let me just pitch one thing, two things, if I may. PalestineHouseOfFreedom.org is our website. And tonight, if anybody's in New York, I'm speaking at the People's Forum at 6:30.
Great.
If anybody's in New York, hope to see you there.
Awesome. Terrific. And with that, we conclude this session, and I think we have a half hour until the next session begins, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you all so very much. We'll see you throughout the A&M. Thanks a lot.